So recently, I played through every Five Nights at Freddy's game, and no, I am not alright. Listen, I do well with horror stuff in general, but jump scares with loud noises, not exactly my favorite, especially 4, but we'll get to that soon enough. Ironically, I did this for a completely different video and a new series on the channel, but considering that will take a while for me to complete, I wanted to first talk about how Five Nights at Freddy's masters tension, because every single game had a form of tension that afterwards I couldn't help but appreciate. So let's talk about it. Without further ado, my name is Josh, also known as Iguanodon, and I hope you enjoy. Now, even though I played all of the mainline FNAF games, for this video, I'll be primarily focusing on FNAF 1 through 4 and Sister Location, mainly because they stick to the original formula, and I think this is where tension is done best. But what exactly is tension? Specifically, what is tension in horror? Horror tension, by definition, is this calculated vagueness surrounding a result, fostering an unpredictable anticipation of an event or outcome. In other words, it's this intense waiting period between safety or death, between 12 AM and 6 AM. And FNAF does a phenomenal job of creating this ever-growing tension. Firstly, you're vulnerable. Listen, if I'm untouchable and there is no potential of being in danger, then what's the point? If I see Springtrap peek from behind my office door, a serial killer of children, and my response is this, "Hello, beautiful," then I don't think the tension was there, or perhaps I was coping. Please don't kill. Come on! In every game, you are vulnerable throughout the entire night. There's no safety period. Any slacking on the job may result in an animatronic getting closer, or peeking through the vents, or downright killing you. Now, this may sound obvious, I get it, but it is an essential piece when creating tension. See, this is why I don't get tense from horror movies, mostly, because we know that the protagonist will always survive, or at least die at the end of the film. Plot armor does not exist in horror games. Our actions alone determine whether we live or die 20 times just before the clock hits 6 AM. You also need to factor in if the player can defend themselves. If I got a gun or some form of weapon, the tension is not nearly as intense. I mean, we don't have to look far. Security Breach is a prime example of this. Oh yeah? What are you gonna do, Chica? You can't fight a toy laser? Pathetic. I think I'm dead. No! You see how comfortable I am standing my ground and simply running past the animatronics? It is so easy to flash them and go about my business. In older FNAF games, there really is no form of defense, more so you're keeping the animatronics at bay before the time reaches 6 AM. Otherwise, it's game over. Secondly, the series has this rise and change of danger. You never want the audience to become totally familiar with the threat or accustomed to it. Now, in relation to Five Nights at Freddy's, you can familiarize yourself with the patterns of Bonnie or Chica, but the tension soon picks up again when Foxy and Freddy then enter the scene. Two completely new animatronics with two completely different patterns. As the nights go on, not only do the animatronics become more active, new ones are introduced to give the player more dangers to juggle. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 begins with the 3 new toy versions of the original cast and the wind-up box of the marionette on night 1. By night 5, there's a bit more going on. Alright, I gotta get this camera, get this vent, I gotta make sure that roughly 10 animatronics are active by night 5, give or take a couple that I'm missing because I don't really care to count. The animatronics become more active, more of them are introduced, rise and change of danger, you see what I'm saying? Or what Five Nights at Freddy's 4 does is completely subvert what you know, and the 5th night is entirely different with Golden Freddy, who, by the way, is actually really easy. I beat night 5 on my second try, and that's only because I purposely died to have footage of the jump scare for the next video. Sister Location does the change of danger best because each night is completely different. Night 1 is getting an idea of the game, Night 2 is Baby Underneath the Desk and Ballora, Night 3 is Foxy and Funtime Freddy, Night 4 is... well, come on. Ah, you butt! And night 5 is more baby and being stabbed by the scooper. Yeah, I got the bad ending. You never become totally familiar with your surroundings because it's constantly changing. Keeping players on their toes with different tasks is a great way of having that tension, or conversely, having that difficulty spike each night. Thirdly, there's good pace and pressure. FNAF 4 and 2 does this best because there is a constant battle from the moment the night begins to the very end. In FNAF 2, I had no time to check on how many of you watching this video right now are subscribed or not, because hey, I had to wind up the box, I had to make sure Foxy was away from my office, keep an eye on the vents, put the mask down when any of the animatronics infiltrated my space. As I understood the animatronics and became familiar with their patterns, the tension then became, what's the best way to balance all the known threats? I was constantly worried that I would miss Balloon Boy in the vent or not put the mask down fast enough, and that definitely gets your heart racing the first time through. I felt like a pretty woman at a Christian university, just completely bombarded with nice guys. While FNAF 2 throws multiple animatronics at you, FNAF 4 challenges the player with audio cues and 2 time bombs, so to speak. Bonnie and Chica hang out in the hallways where you must listen very carefully for their breathing. At the same time, Foxy will slowly peer out through the closet, so you must check on him periodically from jumping out. There's also Freddy, who's behind on the bed. Blind him and his freaks every now and then just to kind of keep him at bay, and you're pretty much good to go. What makes FNAF 4 so strenuous is the lack of room for error. One mistake is all it takes, and you're done. You think you hear breathing, so you close the door, you open it, turns out, nope. I guess. I can't tell you how many times I knew there was breathing, but I doubted myself for 1 second, so I had to check, resulting in... yeah, that. Lastly, FNAF does a very good job of having a disquieting atmosphere. Feel free to disagree, but I think FNAF 1 does atmosphere the best, and it's because of a few reasons. Isolation is one of the best ways to induce a creepy setting because this removes the safety of a group. There's no help besides yourself. The only interaction you get is Phone Guy, and even then he gets gangbanged around the 4th night, and on the 5th night you hear this. That's another thing. Audio design is a crucial aspect in creating a good atmosphere and tension. You know, there's a reason why a lot of players, including myself, played most of the series with one earbud in because I couldn't handle it. You can call me a baby, I can accept that, but FNAF 1 has these eerie sounds in the background, such as the animatronics moving around, Freddy's laugh, and even shy carnival music. I find this one to be the creepiest because in a setting like this, the last thing you would expect to hear is cheerful music. It creates a fear of the unknown and makes you wonder where the noises are coming from. Pair that with the overly static cameras and it's a recipe for a great time. This place is run down, covered in shadows. You wonder what happened for a place like this, meant to be fun for kids, to become this desolate, crummy wasteland of mystery. But by far the creepiest aspect of FNAF 1 personally are the subtle changes that happen on the cameras. There is something so haunting about not seeing the main cast move physically, but simply teleport from camera to camera. It's almost supernatural watching them slowly get closer in this way. Bonnie and Chica even have different positions on the camera, and sometimes they glitch out and stare directly at you. Not exactly, comforting. Even then, once you kind of get used to the setting, it's not that bad. It's these disturbing, subtle differences that happen throughout the game that are my favorite. I love it when a game has these small details that throw you for a loop, and a big one too. When you're playing this for the first time and you notice these subtle differences, it's quite unnerving. It really makes the atmosphere all the more uncanny. Something's going on that you can't quite puzzle together, and that creates great horror. FNAF 1 has this isolated, dreadful tone that works so well to create this tension that I think is unmatched by the other games in the series. FNAF 2's office is too bright, FNAF 3 has too much static, I can barely see Springtrap half the time, FNAF 4 is good, but not as good as FNAF 1, Sister Location is also good, no complaints, but man, FNAF 1 is just way better. Now, all of these categories I mentioned create a chilling form of tension that Five Nights at Freddy's does a fantastic job on. But here's the plot twist. Not only does FNAF have tension in relation to horror, but tension in relation to difficulty. Five Nights at Freddy's starts as a horror game and ends as a challenge to overcome, because yes, you're vulnerable, there's a rise and change of danger, there's pressure and good pacing, and a disquieting atmosphere. However, sooner or later, you're going to get used to it. It's inevitable. From there, every camera flip, flashlight, and beep-bopping Freddy noses must be calculated. You gotta conserve power, keep an eye on the animatronics, you don't want to die and redo the whole thing again. As the nights go on, the difficulty rises to the point where you're not scared of the animatronics, you're scared of failure. FNAF is perhaps the only good horror game where the transition from scary to familiarity is beautifully crafted. I got used to the horror in Outlast, I got used to the horror in Resident Evil, and other games. There is nothing to really make up for that or to replace it. The reason why FNAF does this so well is because once you're familiar, the horror is then replaced with challenge. You have a different purpose now besides being scared. It's to survive the night by mastering the patterns of the animatronics and the mechanics of each game. I mean, even then, the jump scares still get me from time to time, but now I expect it, and now I'm aware of the mistakes that can be made and the errors of how I handle the situation. Two different types of tension done expertly, and that's why I think Five Nights at Freddy's masters this concept so well. But of course, that's just what I think. Let me know your thoughts about it and comments on the topic. I'll be here reading your criticisms as usual. If you've made it this far, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I'll be working on the next video that I originally planned on doing for, this new series. So stay tuned for that. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone, and of course, stay safe.